I can tell you from a conference earlier this week, talking to European Nato defence attachés and the like, anything he issues now is going to be laughed out of court. They basically was told by one defence attaché, every defence minister in Europe has texted John Healey, the former defence secretary, spoken to him, and they've all sort of said, by the way, defence investment plan, what's the problem?
Let's take a look at Keir Starmer's expected commitment to defence spending. It seems that he's going to set out this long-awaited investment plan. There will be an extra billion, apparently, but obviously will that be enough? And is Keir Starmer merely trying to secure his legacy? And what will it mean for Andy Burnham, who comes into the job, and what will he do with that? Joining us now to talk us through it all is editor of Defence Analysis Francis Tusa. Morning, Francis.
Morning.
It's all a bit messy because it feels like there's two things happening at the same time, trying to pull in separate directions. Keir Starmer trying to implement his legacy and put in last-minute change.
I can tell you from a conference earlier this week, talking to European Nato defence attachés and the like, anything he issues now is going to be laughed out of court. They basically was told by one defence attaché, every defence minister in Europe has texted John Healey, the former defence secretary, spoken to him, and they've all sort of said, by the way, defence investment plan, what's the problem? And he's told them what the problems are. So the rush to get the defence investment plan out won't help him at Ankara, because people have just said it's not going to be worth the paper it's written on.
Right, and John Healey, you mentioned there, of course, who quit earlier on, and that, of course, was a huge blow to Starmer's ability to get this defence plan over the line. So I suppose the question then is, if, like you said, it's DOA, why is he bothering?
A very good question, because trying to have a legacy based on a document that will be fundamentally flawed, and no one inside MOD believes it will be a decent document. It'll be, in inverted commas, the best fudge that can be arranged with the Treasury. There is a degree of what is the point? And indeed, several senior European defence staff at this conference were just saying, Dan Jarvis, current defence secretary, it'll be better if he turns up and says, I've only been in post 18 days. I am trying to get this one sorted. And they would go, yeah, fine. That's better than a complete fudge.
OK, so no hopes there. It's a pretty stern look at things. And I suppose trying to implement a legacy in the last few weeks of your premiership is futile in of itself. That's fundamentally not how a legacy works.
Yeah, something like this. And remember that Keir Starmer was at the NATO conferences, which said everyone's going to head towards 3.5% of GDP spent on defence. He signed up to all those pledges, literally in his last days, his last gasp breath, suddenly saying, look, here is my legacy. Again, no one's going to take it seriously. He's tried doing he's taken defence, turned defence around, UK defence around during his premiership. He's allowed John Healey to make some quite important changes to the Ministry of Defence. Has he turned the ship around, the oil tanker? No, he hasn't. Fundamentally, there is still a lot wrong with UK defence. We don't have the ammunition, so that if we had to go to war, which you speak to most of the Europeans, it's a prospect within 3 years, we would run out of missiles and artillery rounds in about 3 weeks. That's not changed.
Speaking of John Healey, given his resignation, do you think we can see a return of him to his post under Andy Burnham, or would that be kept quite separate or seen as bringing in kind of the old Starmer workforce, if you will?
That is a very good question. At one level, it would make a lot of sense to bring him back, but John Healey would be perfectly right to say, OK, I will come back. I do know what needs to be done, but you can't give me the same rubbish defence investment plan that you foisted on Dan Jarvis. OK, the full 28 billion over 4 years? Arguably not. There are a lot of problems with that figure. But 13.5, 14 billion simply isn't enough. And especially if it's backloaded, which is no real money for 2 years, but don't worry, we'll see you OK after that. And this is the whole problem. The Treasury has interfered with the process and just said, no, we're not going to spend money on this. And I don't think the so-called whiz-kids of the Treasury have understood what this is doing to the UK's reputation on the global stage and the problems it's storing up for UK to be able to negotiate other treaties. It's rare to link defence with things like, the European Union and so forth. They are linked.
Okay. And finally, what does it all mean for Andy Burnham? How much can he actually tear up? How much does he have to abide by? Is Keir Starmer setting him up for a fail? Maybe it's not about legacy. Maybe it's about making Andy Burnham's life as difficult as possible. Because in all reports we've heard, Keir Starmer is very angry with Andy Burnham.
Very good point. I do not rule it out at all. Another thing we have to consider alongside the Defence Investment Plan is on Tuesday, probably, the UK will sign the next contract for the Global Combat Air Programme. This is for the next fighter aircraft, which we're in alliance with Italy and Japan. The Treasury will be coming up with 3-4 billion to cover that. And it's not the last payment, it's a stage payment. That is something Andy Burnham won't be able to touch at all. So his hands will be tied over that. For the rest of the Defence Investment Plan, if it is as rubbish as everyone is saying, he will have so much room to say, yeah, we're going to change it. But he can only change it one way, which is to raise expenditure.
OK. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time this morning, Francis. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
So some of you already reflecting on this idea of prioritising legacy over national security is what one of you gets in touch to say. Also, David says, hold on a second, let's just reflect on that fact. In the event of war, we would run out of ammunition in 3 weeks, says Dave, which emphasises why this Defence Investment Plan is so important to get right.
Yeah, and also thinking about war, it's not going to be conducted in the traditional way that it used to be, right? I mean, there's a valid point about missiles and actual artillery, but actually there is a whole war that happens with cyber agents and with digital infiltration. There is just a whole other expense to it as well, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole sort of significant thing. And crucially in all of this, and you were getting into there, is what the future of this Defence Investment Plan actually is. Of course, all of our political conversations have to be looked at through the Burnham lens. Now, what does he like? What does he not like? And there's a suggestion that he might not sign up to this Defence Investment Plan as currently is. So what does the future look like?